Rodgers is down. Rodgers is down. Rodgers is being helped off the field with his arms around two athletic trainers. He caught it. Wilson caught it. Garrett Wilson caught it for a touchdown. He goes inside the 15, breaks a tackle. 5, touchdown, touchdown. The Jets have won. The Jets have won.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. I'm Connor Rodgers alongside Matthew Berry and Jay Croucher. That sound you heard at the top of the show was a wild night for many reasons at MetLife Stadium as the Jets beat the Bills, but at what cost, fellas?
At what cost? What cost? Can I tell you something, Jay?
Yes, Matthew.
It's very upsetting because Connor Rodgers is Mr. SNY, as you know, and SNY is all in on the Jets, right?
Yes, I've heard.
Yeah.
Broadcast.
It's a big part of the business. Portfolio.
I'm just saying, you're going to be seeing a lot more of Connor Rodgers on NBC Sports these days. SNY no longer has a need for Connor's service. What are you going to do? I don't want to make jokes about. I feel terrible about it. Look, first off, awesome victory. Let's start with the positive.
The game was unbelievable.
The game was unbelievable. Garrett Wilson, anytime touchdown, never in doubt.
Yep.
Never in doubt.
It looked so easy.
My best bet yesterday, never in doubt, anytime touchdown.
Maybe they should throw
Garrett
to him.
Wilson.
Maybe they should actually throw to him. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable victory for the Jets. Thrilled for them on what was such a tough night. To win a game like that, divisional rival. By the way, just so many stories, right? So Garrett Wilson, the amazing touchdown. Zach Wilson, obviously uneven, but a bit of a redemption for Zach Wilson, right? He ultimately leads his team to victory, right? And the kid from Hard Knocks,
Xavier Gibson had his moment,
right?
Yep.
What a storybook ending. So I feel for my friends who are Jets fans. Connor, a lifelong Jets fan. Are you? It's always every day by day.
I
Where
wouldn't
are you
say
today?
Lifelong, half lifelong. Half-life Jets fan.
Okay.
I like this. I'm all in on the Jets now. I think they're the most sympathetic team in the league. So
From the most hated to the most sympathetic.
Exactly. I'm right in on them.
Right.
One torn Achilles.
But you're not a sympathetic guy. You usually
Sure.
you like the
Yeah,
villain.
Yeah. Maybe I'll be a Browns fan.
Yeah, exactly. The elves.
Too far.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just going to say it's a great victory. We'll talk about Zach Wilson here in a minute here. But obviously the big story, guys, is Aaron Rodgers. I don't have any shares of Aaron Rodgers fantasy-wise. He was my quarterback 17. I didn't think he would have a great fantasy year, but I also didn't think he'd be injured 4 plays into the season, Jay.
No. And, firstly, Matthew, Connor's still got the Mets at SNY, and they're having a fantastic season, so that's fine.
Great thing to jump to.
Fantastic.
I thought Bill
Jets fans drink free, by the way, as you
Yes.
can see on the sign, obviously.
for all of eternity.
Yeah, pretty
seeming
much.
like it. Bill Simmons had a really good tweet where he said that game last night was like a football game mixed with the film Magnolia, which Magnolia is actually my favorite movie, so that really rang true. And I thought that is a way to sum it up. It just felt like a fever dream. It felt like an unreality that could happen. And then mixed with the ending. Also, it's going to get glossed over now, the doinked kick to tie it up, which is now just an afterthought because of the punt run back. It never felt real. It's going to be the most memorable game of the season for a lot of reasons, I think. Now we move on to the Zach Wilson era again.
So much to dive into, but I just want Penn State Blake, just make a note of this so we can come back to this, that Jay's favorite movie of all time is Magnolia, which I have massive issues with. That's an awful movie. It's so annoying. It's so over the top, and oh my God.
I didn't appreciate Paul Thomas Anderson coming out publicly 15 years after the film saying that he screwed it up. I'd already decided that it was my favorite movie.
There's moments that are awesome about it, but there are also things that just drive me anyway, all right, we'll get it.
We'll do the Magnolia pod.
Right, we'll do a whole Magnolia pod where we debate that movie. I don't even think... Forget your favorite. I don't think it's his best movie. I don't think it's even close to his best movie.
He's got a lot of really good movies.
Yes,
so
exactly. But anyway. All right. Aaron Rodgers. This is bad.
It's not good.
Hashtag analysis. Thank you. Good night.
Well done. Take the day off.
This is all right. So in case you've missed the news, it's been tweeted out that there were concerns last night that. Robert Saleh said they thought it was bad. They were going to do an MRI to test whether or not it was a torn Achilles. It was a little confusing. The graphic on ESPN said that the X-rays were negative on his ankle.
Yes.
But which is true, but that's not the
his
concern.
ankle wasn't broken.
The ankle wasn't the issue,
Thank
right?
you,
But that wasn't the anyway. It was very confusing. But The fact of the matter is it has now been confirmed. He has torn his Achilles. He is officially out for the year. So, so now where do the Jets go from here? It's so much to talk about here. I guess the first thing is here's my question, just very quickly: is this the last play we see Aaron Rodgers play in the NFL?
I think that's the biggest question: is he just gonna kind of ride off into the sunset, or is he going to go through a grueling rehab process and try to come back for 2024, where his plan was always to play at least 2 years.
Right.
For the Jets, that's the whole restructure, at least 2 years. But this is one of the worst rehabs that you could possibly ever have to go through.
I will say that Achilles tears, that's a career ender previously in years past. Think back to, just an array of players. But, different sport, but Kevin Durant came back and was close to the best player in the NBA after that. Cam Akers come back and looked very explosive.
And he's not a running back.
Season. Yeah, and Rodgers isn't a running back. So I think that, it's just a matter of, do you want to put in all the work and get back at 40 years old?
Look, I will say this, that if there's any player in the NFL that is mentally tough enough to do that, if they want to do it, Aaron Rodgers is that dude, right? That is a guy that when he puts his mind to something is just steel trap. Having said that, it is a long, long road. Vera Tucker saying, the offensive lineman was quoted, as we were trying to lift him up, he was like, no, I'm not getting up. Anytime a player says that, it's probably not good. He knew immediately.
Yep. So we'll get into all the fantasy implications in terms of football and the betting market. So the Jets play the Cowboys next week, which isn't great. That's not a great introduction for Zach Wilson after having to play the Bills. But the Jets were 3-point underdogs a few days ago against the Cowboys. Now they're 7.5-point underdogs. So that's gone through, it's 3 is a key number, going through 7 is a key number. So it's basically like they're 5.5 points worse with Zach Wilson.
Now 8.5. Apparently,
that's
what I've heard. It's actually just going like a slot machine.
Well, it's actually now 9. Yeah.
Right. No, honestly, some of that obviously is Vegas, but some of that is the narrative around. There's so much negativity around Zach Wilson, and obviously the Cowboys with such a dominating performance on Sunday Night Football in primetime in front of everyone. I'm going to say this about Zach Wilson, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but I actually think Zach Wilson might be okay. Again, hang on, hear me out. Hear my premise out.
Okay.
I'm not saying that you would want to ever start him, and certainly not against the Cowboys. I'm merely saying is that the narrative around him, I think, is different. Like the pressure's off. No one expects this guy to be good, right? No one expects him to be good. And last night he comes into a game in which he's gotten very few first-team reps all season. It's a completely new offense, right? It's basically Rodgers and Hackett and their shorthand is basically the offense they're running. And so the more reps he gets with a first team and the more they simplify the playbook and say, okay, let's go back to the stuff that Zach Wilson, they didn't have that planned last night, right? And so, he'll struggle against Dallas and he'll make some, but, there's a reason that Zach Wilson was the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft a couple of years ago. This guy, it's not like the guy has no talent whatsoever. It's all mental, and I do think that in this scenario with all the there's pressure taken off of him, as opposed to you're the number 2 pick, you need to be the savior of the franchise, as opposed to you're the backup and we're not expecting anything, and can we get something out of you?
Yeah, look, I'll certainly be rooting for him. I think everyone will be rooting for Zach Wilson to succeed, but I just look at him and I think that he watched the Brett Favre interception against the Saints in the NFC title game when Favre was on Minnesota. He's like, that's what I want to do. And because that's how I feel when I watch him. And just the pick to Milano, the drifting back outside, extending plays for no reason, and inviting pressure and throwing it up for grabs. I don't know. I don't think there's much there.
It's going to
I'm not saying the guy's going to be great. What I am going to say is that I think the guy will be decent enough to hopefully, certainly keep, we'll get into the running backs here in a second, but hopefully he's good enough to keep Garrett Wilson afloat, right? So last year, Garrett Wilson, in games that Zach Wilson did not start, averaged 17.9 fantasy points per game, 17.3 I should say. 17.3 fantasy points per game. He was the 9th best wide receiver in fantasy on a points per game basis. In games that Zach Wilson played last year or started, Garrett Wilson averaged 8.6 fantasy points per game. He was wide receiver 61. So again, really stark differences. And so that's the biggest concern, I think, of going from Rodgers to Zach Wilson is, what does that affect Garrett Wilson, who most people had as a borderline wide receiver one this season? We all expected him to ascend this year, Connor, with Rodgers under center, and now it looks like it's going to be the Zach Wilson show.
He takes the biggest hit out of everyone, right, when you look at this offense, because obviously not only was Aaron Rodgers going to lift him up, but the amount of targets he was going to see in an offense that would simply throw more with Aaron Rodgers compared to how much they're going to throw with Zach Wilson, assuming they don't make a move for a veteran. So that's what really hurts. You saw the communication already between Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers in the preseason. They'd been working on that from OTAs throughout training camp and had a lot of success with it. And now Zach Wilson and him have to find that. It's as simple as that. But I think it's on Nathaniel Hackett, too, to get Garrett Wilson involved with easy throws, because that's something they did not do last night.
So here's my question for you, Connor. So the next 5 weeks for the Jets, at Cowboys, New England, Kansas City, at Denver, Philadelphia. I'm just going to go out and say that's the toughest 5-week stretch any team has got coming up. And then they go into the bye. What chance do you think Zach Wilson is not the starting quarterback coming out of that bye? Forget injuries and stuff, but that they sign Carson Wentz or they trade for Jacoby Brissett or something. What do you think the chances are there?
Or where's Joe Flacco these days?
Oh, God.
Matt Ryan.
Not with the Jets. I think a true coin flip, and that might even be generous, honestly. I might put it at 40-60, honestly.
That makes sense to me.
Number one, they have to make some kind of move anyway, and that doesn't have to be a move that, hey, you're starting this week against Dallas. Tim Boyle's the next guy after Zach Wilson. That's not a player that you're not suiting up Tim Boyle.
Right.
I'm sorry. It's just you're not. So they are going to make a move, in my opinion. It's a matter of what is the urgency of that move. Is it trading for somebody that can actually play, like Jacoby Brissett or even Jameis Winston? Or is it getting somebody off the scrap heap right now in Carson Wentz that we really have no idea if he can play anymore? That's the lingering question. But will they make a move? They have to make some kind of move for this team.
You know, what's interesting, right, is that that the trade with the Packers that had Aaron Rodgers played 60%, I think over 60% of the snaps this year, they owed the Packers a first-round pick, which they were more than happy to give up. They wanted Rodgers to play 100% of the snaps, right? But now that obviously that Aaron Rodgers is only going to play 4 snaps in the 2023 season, it's now a second-round pick, which means a first-round pick that they'd already sort of mentally written off is there for the taking. Do they take that first-round pick and make an offer to somebody else, because this team is built to win right now?
So as it stands right now, I think they can't trade it right now because it is a conditional pick. I wonder if that condition locks in if they put him on IR or something like that. But the problem the Jets always had is they can't trade their first or second round pick as long as those conditions are lingering, which is a really odd wrinkle in all of this.
I'm not sure there's anyone they could really change. I mean, Stafford or something.
The Rams look good.
A lot of people, Jets fans, are messaging me about Stafford. Like, I think Stafford looked pretty good in LA. I think they might want to keep him.
Yeah, I don't know if Sean McVay's signing up for that.
Yeah, what he did with Puka Nacua, who we'll get into. But yeah, look, this Jets team is too good to punt on this season. You cannot go forward with just Zach Wilson. They have to make a move, to your point. They just have to.
They try to bring back Mike White. Call Miami.
Yeah, we need him back.
It's a divisional rival.
Right? That's
it's probably you know. Listen, I mean, I don't know. I saw about 8 billion memes last night. I got a bunch of Tom Brady in Jets gear. I got a bunch of texts, not from either of you two assholes, but I did get it from a bunch of my actual friends that put me on text threads.
We kept the memes in our direct.
Yeah, no, I understand. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay, respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.